Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next series on Behind the Shine. We'll give some folks about another 20 or 30 seconds to join, and then we'll kick off. I hope everyone's having a very awesome Thursday and getting ready for the weekend.
Can't believe it's already Thursday. Where'd the week go?
Already Thursday. It feels like it's always Thursday, but never Friday.
Yeah, right.
All right. It looks like we have a pretty good amount of attendees that have started. So again, welcome to the Behind the Sign series. This is our second session. We're going to be talking about insurance essentials. I think this is a really important topic that I am incredibly excited to bring in industry expertise on. So welcome Kyle Jude from Insurance Canopy, who's going to be giving us all sorts of incredible information about the cleaner insurance and contractor insurance and why this is really important for your business. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Of course. I'm Chris Rule. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience here at Turno. Just to give a little bit of administrative at the top, everyone is sort of in listen-only mode at this point, but you do have access to questions and answers. So please, by all means, type in those questions. I'll be monitoring those questions and asking Kyle live if you have any of those questions, either for in the insurance side or even the Turno side and how we work with insurance. So by all means, please encourage questions. We will answer them live with you. So this particular Behind the Shine series is all about insurance essentials, right? Obviously, we're hosting it. Turno's hosting it with our partners, Insurance Canopy. Very, very excited to dive into all the little things that you need to know and understand about adding insurance for your cleaning business. Jumping into at first, I really want to start with just like, obviously, insurance is going to be great, important, and understand from a business perspective. But there's also a lot that you can learn about how it engages with the Turno platform. So if you are a marketplace cleaner, we do allow you to upload the insurance information onto the Turno platform, right? This is a huge opportunity to be able to show hosts all of the different credentials you have. Insurance is one of the badges we have. We have bonding, we have licensing, we have obviously background checks. All you need to do, this is all inside of your application. If you are insured already, or if you're going to get insured after this particular presentation or after you're listening to this, it's really easy to get your badges inside the Turno platform, inside of your app or inside of the website. There is a small processing fee that we use to make sure that we're validating all of these licenses and insurance liability documents. But once those are presented and uploaded, usually within 24 to 48 hours, they will have a live badge on your profile. And you can see here on the right-hand side, the screenshot, these are what hosts see. So, as you're competing against other cleaners on our marketplace, these types of things matter, right? These insurance badges do matter quite a bit, and hosts will see these things. In fact, cleaners who have insurance badges actually connect with hosts 12% more often. They actually end up on average with 8 more connections, right? So they're connecting with hosts more often, which, the more hosts you can connect with, the more projects you can get. And they, even with newer folks, if you are newer to the platform, I highly suggest this as well, because if you do have an insurance badge, you're likely going to connect to your very first host 30% faster than somebody without it. So this stuff matters, and it matters because obviously hosts want to understand, they want to have the highest quality cleaners and understand the people who are the most, professional. But there's actually a lot of HOAs and different, covenant controlled situations where these short-term rentals reside in that require insured contractors to come into their properties. So there are many hosts who actually cannot even engage with cleaners or contractors who do not have some level of insurance associated to them. So it is really important that you understand this and that you look into these things, right? And this is why we're doing this educational session, is so that you can learn more about it, right? What are the costs? What are the risks? How can you protect yourself? And so I'm really, really excited to pass this over to Kyle to really deep dive into all things sort of insurance when it comes to these types of cleanings and short-term rentals and things. So he's an expert. He's a fantastic person. We've talked quite a bit, and so I'm very excited to turn the presentation over to him.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Chris. Yeah, so insurance is my passion. So I apologize if some of these things, sound a little nerdy, but if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to, stop and answer anything that you do have. But here it'll take about 20 minutes. We'll go over, what are the biggest risks that short-term rental cleaners face? What are the 5 core coverages you need to look out for to protect your business? The difference, what are certificates of insurance, what type of contracts you can get, how to choose the limits that are right for you, and how to make more money. So as we go through all these different things, I hope you find them informative and beneficial. And like I said, please do ask questions. Okay. So when you're on the job, what types of things can go wrong? Did you mop a floor right before a guest showed up and the floor still wet when they show up and they slip and fall? Did you use the wrong chemicals on a granite countertop and cause property damage? Does one of your contracts, give you keys to access their building and you misplaced those keys and now you got to change locks and rekey a house because you no longer can get access to, their property? Do you have a little bit larger company and you have employees and one of them hurts themselves on the job? One of the biggest ones that a lot of people don't think about is, when you're working and you're like driving to a site, your personal vehicle insurance probably won't cover you. So are you properly insured while driving to and from job sites? And then another thing is when you're cleaning properties, things can sometimes go missing or misplaced and you can be accused, even if you did nothing wrong. You can be accused of items being stolen. So looking at these 6 key items, those are the top things that you need to keep in mind when you're trying to protect your business. Am I cleaning in a place that's easily accessible by others? Am I using the right products to make sure that I'm not damaging something? Do I have my keys or are they keeping them safe? All these different factors, you can limit your risk by keeping track of these different things and help mitigate some of your losses just by staying on top of those, making sure employees have the right equipment if they're lifting something heavy, making sure your vehicle is protected properly, because accidents happen on the road. You might not even be at fault, but they happen. And to make sure that you're back on the road and getting helped faster, car insurance is best. So we'll go a little bit further in detail about, the types of coverage that help each of these instances over the next few slides. So if you do have questions about any one in particular, please let me know. If you can go on to the next slide. So there are 5 core coverages to look for when you're protecting yourself. The first one is general liability insurance. And general liability insurance is protecting you and your business against bodily injuries and property damage to others. So this is where, you accidentally damaged a countertop while using incorrect chemicals, or you're sweeping and you accidentally hit the wall and put a hole in the wall, or you have a wet floor after cleaning and someone slips and falls. That's where your general liability insurance will kick into play. Typically on a commercial insurance policy, you're going to find limits of, 500,000, 1 million per occurrence and up, but those can be customizable based on your insurance needs. If you have employees, if your business is growing and you start hiring employees, workers' compensation is critical, especially in an industry where it is manual labor. A lot of it's intensive. You can be lifting heavy things, moving heavy objects, and injuries are a high risk. Carrying workers' compensation is crucial, and a lot of times, depending on the state you're in, it's mandatory. And so you can actually be fined. Your business can be shut down if you don't have workers' compensation insurance and it is required where you live. Commercial auto insurance. So there's 2 different types of commercial auto insurance. There's commercial auto. So let's say that your business owns a vehicle, or you have a vehicle and you're leasing it to your business. That's where you would get a standard commercial auto insurance policy, because the vehicle is titled in your business's name and it covers you for those business operations. It covers for, one of your employees driving the vehicle up to specific radiuses. There's lots of different factors that come into play. And then there's something called hired and non-owned auto. This is something that you can get, and it protects you while driving a personal vehicle for business use or a rented vehicle. So let's say that you have your personal sedan or personal van that you use. You've got all your stuff in there and you're driving to a job and you get to a car wreck. Hired and non-owned auto can protect you against things, and you'll see it called H&OA a lot, or different factors, but a lot of times it can be endorsed onto your either personal auto policy or your commercial general liability policy. The next
Kyle,
thing,
Kyle, I
yeah,
do have one question on workers' comp insurance.
of course.
But does workers' compensation also cover 1099 contractors?
So there is actually, a lot of debate about whether workers' compensation covers 1099 contractors. And the way to look at it is, if you are giving someone daily tasks and you're telling them what to do on their job, you're paying them, then most likely you're going to need to get workers' compensation insurance. Now, let's say that you have a project and you say, I need X and X done, and you're not telling them what to do or how to do it or anything like that. You just say, here's $50, go do a job, and whatever you do, then workers' compensation might not be needed. But it's always best to check with your local and state regulators to see how they interpret it, because every state is different. But yes, sometimes 1099 employees do need workers' compensation insurance.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle.
Of course. So another thing to think about is tools and equipment coverage. Some of the tools that you have can be very expensive, depending on the types of jobs you're doing. I've seen claims where, someone broke into one of our insured's van and they stole an industrial floor mopper, and this thing is like $6,000. And without tools and equipment, or what we call inland marine coverage, you're just out of pocket. It covers for theft, damaged gear, damaged goods. So let's say that you're driving to a site and you get into a car accident and all your stuff in the back of your vehicle is damaged. That's where your inland marine comes into play. Now, obviously, a lot of times that things wear and tear and break over time, or those types of things wouldn't be covered for inland marine. But for your larger items that are costly to replace, inland marine is a really good option for you, and it's not that expensive. Another thing to keep in mind is janitorial bonds. So what these do is these protect you against allegations of employee dishonesty. So this is where your theft would come into play. Like someone said, hey, you stole a TV off my wall, or I don't know, just something. A janitorial bond will protect you against allegations of theft or employee dishonesty. And it looks great to have them as well on the Turno site. So really good option to add. And then some of the other things to think about as you're growing your business are cyber liability insurance. Do you take payments and collect customer information over the internet on anything electronic? If you do, cyber liability insurance is probably one of the most important coverages you can have to protect your business. The number of cyber liability losses is increasing drastically, and as artificial intelligence becomes more and more prevalent in our day-to-day lives, those attacks become easier and easier for the criminals. So it's always, I say, general liability insurance, and then cyber liability insurance is basically number 2 to protect your business.
Yeah,
and then,
I'd add. Oh, sorry, Kyle. I would add on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would add on that. Like the nice thing about the Turno marketplace, or if you are receiving payments through Turno, like we will help you in those instances, right? But there are a lot of folks who are definitely on this call or listening to this later who have clients outside of Turno, right? Who may pay them outside of Turno, or they take payments or take information from these hosts, and things like that is a incredible piece that you need to make sure that you think about, right? So
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, it's scary to see how good some of these things that get you, because they make you think it's a sense of urgency, that it's someone that you know, and before you know it, they have access to your entire computer system, all your banking information, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then professional, some of the other coverages, professional liability. So this is something that, let's say that you teach classes or things like that, and you're giving advice to others. Professional liability will help that. Pollution. Are you doing intensive cleaning with highly regulated chemicals? Pollution insurance is something that you might want to check out. A lot of your, standard household cleaners, things like that you buy at the local store, that's not really necessary for pollution. But like if you're doing industrial cleaning on as well, then you're definitely going to want to look at potential pollution coverage, because any spills are highly regulated by the EPA. So keep that in mind. And then if you do get a bigger job, let's say that one of your clients needs higher limits than what your standard policy offers. Umbrella or excess liability coverage is a great option to add to your policy that basically gives you those extra limits needed without having to buy a whole new policy. You can buy this, and it's called an umbrella because it basically is an umbrella over all your other coverages underneath it, your general liability, your commercial auto, janitorial bonds, things like that. Okay, we can go on to the next one. And then now we're going to look at these individual coverages a little bit more. So general liability. So the typical types of claims that you're going to see, your slip and falls, damage to countertops, flooring, fixtures, accidental broken items. One that is, a little rare but can be very, very costly is advertising injury. So are you doing advertising and, comparing yourself to potential other cleaners in your area, and you say something that they take as offense, they could sue you for slander, and it can be very, very costly to defend, and defense costs. So let's say that you do get sued. Your insurance will step in for a covered loss, and it'll pay for attorney's fees while they're reviewing everything and defending your claim. And client requirements, a lot of times for general liability, they need a certificate of insurance. So the certificate of insurance basically is your way to prove to a client that you have insurance. So for instance, with Insurance Canopy, you go online and you make a purchase, you can get a certificate of insurance instantly. So our policies bind at the time of initial payment. So if you need one for a job, you can go online and get one in 10 minutes. Or if you have a policy through another carrier, call them. They can usually email you one if you already have something in place. Additional insurance, depending on the client, the type of business. Let's say that you get a job that's at a commercial property. It's like you're working at a hotel and you're doing some things on the side. That business is going to ask you to add them as an additional insured to limit their liability for things that you're doing on during your work. Primary non-contributory wording. What that means is that your insurance policy is going to be the primary insurance. So it goes in conjunction with an additional insured. So your policy will act as the first line of defense without having to involve that third party where you're doing work at their establishment. And then waiver of subrogation usually is added after you have a primary non-contributory. It's not used as often, but waiver of subrogation means that if there is a loss, your insurance company will not try to reclaim damages from that person's insurance. They will not try and contact the insurance and say, I want you to pay half of this, or I want you to give us all the money back. And then as a little side note, auto accidents are not covered by your GL policy. That's commercial auto or HNOA. That's a common misconception. Oh, I've insured my business with GL. It does not cover accidents. 99.9% of your standard GL policies out there, I can't speak for all of them, but 99.9% will exclude any auto, boats, aircraft, trailers from their policy. And then employees are also not covered by your GL because they're not a third party. One big thing to remember with GL is it's covering damages to a third party. Employees are considered a first party in this because they work for the business. And then, yeah, I think that's about it. We can go on to the next slide. Workers' compensation insurance. So I'm glad that 1099 question was brought up earlier because I'm going to touch base on it a little bit here. But things that workers' compensation covers: medical bills, lost wages, disability benefits, employer's liability. So let's say one of your employees gets seriously hurt and tries to sue you, it's covered. And then, like I said earlier, check your local and state regulations because it is often required mandatorily by the states. And then calling someone a contractor does not always mean that you don't have to have workers' compensation insurance for them. You may still be responsible. Some clients require it, even if you are the only employee. So even if you are a solo out there, they might still ask you to provide workers' compensation insurance. So please do let us know if you have any questions about workers' compensation insurance. We're happy to go into it more detailed. But that's really the gist of it. We kind of touched on it earlier. So
I will say this is in terms of the insurance badging, that some of like the HOAs and the covenant controlled areas, like they require these things. And so you may get these questions from hosts like, not only are you insured for, like what Kyle was saying, general liability, but are you also insured for workers' comp, even just for yourself, right? As you come into some of these buildings. So it is something that you need to consider. And, obviously certain connections and hosts may not care as much as others, but like it is a really good way for you to continue to protect yourself. And especially if you start to bring in, additional employees to help you with the volume of claims that you bring in. So yeah, this is a good one.
There is ways to get workers' compensation insurance, even if you are a solo. Some insurance companies will not write workers' comp for just the owner only, but every state has a state fund that you can get workers' compensation insurance directly from the state if needed. Commercial auto. This is where, one little car accident can, destroy your business, because, driving to and from jobs is your livelihood, unless you live in a downtown metropolitan area with, easy public access. I sure know I don't. I'm 30 minutes away from, the nearest grocery store where I live. So, commercial auto insurance is a huge necessity to protect your business, because if you do get to a car accident with your personal vehicle and it is on the job, your personal auto insurance is not going to kick in unless you have HNOA. So just to make sure we understand the difference between commercial auto and hired and non-owned auto, commercial auto covers a company-owned vehicle used for work. So that's a vehicle that's titled or leased by the company. It can include liability and property damage. So just like your standard personal auto, it'll have a liability option and then a comp and collision option as well. And then for a hired and non-owned, it protects the business if someone drives a non-owned vehicle for work. So that's where personal vehicle use comes in with this endorsement. It also covers rented vehicles. So let's say that you have a big job and you need to rent a van to be able to move all the equipment to a particular job that you're doing. It covers rented vehicles for liability, because you wouldn't cover the property damage because it's a third-party vehicle, so that liability protects you against the third party. And then it is a common requirement on contracts. So make sure that you are reading your contracts thoroughly, because sometimes they'll say that, some sort of commercial HNOA or commercial auto is required. So if you use your personal car for jobs, reach out, ask us about business use endorsements and or hired non-owned auto. Okay. We touched base on this earlier. Tools and equipment coverage, or the industry name for it is inland marine. Your tools, your equipment that you have, it's your livelihood, and it can get expensive. You have most likely a minimum of $1,000 worth of equipment, but sometimes 10,000 plus. So your inland marine insurance will typically cover theft from the vehicle as long as the vehicle's locked. Just unattended equipment or mysterious disappearances, they like to call it in the insurance industry. That's usually not covered, but let's say that, all your equipment's in a vehicle, it's locked, and someone breaks into your vehicle, 100% you're good to go. Accidental damage to equipment. So this is, you have something there and you're stepping backwards and you accidentally step on something and break one of your tools. It would be covered. Now, let's say that you have your favorite, mop or something like that you're using, and it just wears out from old age because you've used it for the past 5 years because it's your favorite. Not going to be covered. And it does help you quickly replace and keep working. A lot of times, inland marine claims are turned around and paid out within 15 days. So it can help you get back up and running really quickly. And some of the tips that I recommend doing with your equipment, take a photo of them. Keep an inventory, so you can have a simple spreadsheet that says, I have a Dyson vacuum cleaner and it cost me $700. I have X and X, it cost me $500. And just keep an inventory in a spreadsheet and take a quick photo with your phone and keep them in a folder on your phone, so that if something does happen, you have that information readily available, and it's easy to send to your insurance company if there is a claim. And then also, most of the time, inland marine insurance, it comes with some sort of deductible. So it can be anywhere from $100 to $55 on up, depending on your limits. So be cognizant when you are purchasing your inland marine coverage for your business, what that deductible is, because if you've got a $150 deductible and the item that was accidentally broken is $50, there's no point in filing a claim on it because it's not going to do anything. So I think that touches everything in inland marine. And then I think the next, they're not as widely used throughout the industry, but they are super beneficial. It gives peace of mind for your clients. And a lot of times they will ask, are you bonded? And usually when they say that, it means for theft protection. So what it covers is it responds to theft by employees or theft allegations. Helps with, vendor qualification for homes and commercial sites, because they'll ask for it a lot. And it protects your reputation when accusations happen, because if something happens, the bonding company's going to step in, they're going to take care of it right there, and then you can work it out. Make sure you set expectations to both your employees and the clients. Not every missing item is covered, so proof matters. This is like what I talked about earlier, mysterious disappearance. Like, so you could clean a home and there could have never been something there, but someone makes an accusation. They have to, they're going to have to provide proof that something was actually stolen or missing, because they can't, you see it happen all the time where someone misplaces something and then there's an accusation and a claims filed where 2 days later they're like, oh, it was in the trunk of my car. It happens all the time.
One thing to add here, I think you have this on the checklists and things, but in your cleaner apps, Turno, obviously there's checklist photos that clients are asking for. So incredibly important, right? To make sure that you're proving that your work is being done. But you can upload as many photos and videos into your projects as you would like, right? So that way you don't have to continue to keep your own, log of these things. So a big suggestion that we have with really, sort of top cleaners is they will go through and do a video of like the before and then a video of the after and just upload those up so that they have the proof for themselves. You can also do the same thing with photos before and after. I think, folks get really antsy of like trying to do the project really quickly and they forget to do some sort of like photo before photos so that way, number one, that the host you can show exactly the type of work that you're doing, but also for exactly this reason, right? Like if something were to happen in terms of accusations, you have covered yourself, even just with the current, beyond the insurance side, you've also covered yourself with photo proof, right? The technology is there, it's in your hands, it's out of the box, you don't pay anything extra for it, use it, right? So that's a heavy suggestion that I have for you all too.
Easy way to protect your reputation, and strap a GoPro on and put it to music and you have yourself a YouTube channel. So, and then also background checks for employees is very, beneficial. And I think you can show that as well, that you're doing background checks on your employees on Turno. It's an easy way to, make sure that, none of the people that you hired, you knew that they had some criminal history or anything like that. It gives you peace of mind. It gives your clients peace of mind. And it just looks good that you're doing it, and it helps you get additional clients. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one there, which is, I think this one is we're gonna go over and talk about, what type of things to look for when your general liability insurance isn't enough. So a lot of your general liability insurance policies will exclude specific types of work. So initial post-construction cleanups. So let's say a home just got done being built and you're doing the initial cleaning of the house before it's sold and someone's moved into it. Almost all insurance policies will exclude this unless you get it by endorsement. I know because we just had a claim, and I can talk about it. So one of our insureds was cleaning a home first post-construction cleanup, and they didn't know at the time. They were doing an exterior pressure wash. The windows had a special coating on them that they weren't informed of, and with their pressure washing, they destroyed every window. $140,000 worth of windows needed to be replaced in that house. So without insurance, where does that come? Like, do you have enough money in your business to be able to float a $140,000 claim and still be operational? So those are the types of things you got to ask yourself and think about. Almost all of them will also exclude medical facilities and biohazard cleaning. There's endorsements you can get. I know we have an endorsement for covering medical facilities cleaning as long as they're not open 24 hours or they're like a hospital or emergency room. So like we can cover like doctor's offices, things like that, dental offices, but anything that's over open 24 hours, they're going to be excluded almost across the board unless you have a specific insurance policy for that. Depending on where you live, coastal areas, you might have a client that you clean for regularly and then they get hit by a hurricane or something floods. Most policies will not cover mold, water extraction, or any sort of disaster response. So even if they are your current client and something happens and it's a hurricane, they're not going to cut. The insurance policies can sometimes not cover you. And then any handling of hazard materials or infectious waste. And then optional coverages to ask about: professional E&O. So those are for performance claims, training, things like that. Pollution and chemical overspray, higher limits is umbrella, and then the number one, like I said earlier, cyber liability. So let's say that you do have, some of these business operations on, some of the other things that you're doing besides just your standard short-term rental cleaning, because you might pick up some side work. If you do have any of these, please speak with an insurance agent, inform them about it, because they're there to counsel you. They have a duty to make sure that they're providing you the coverage that you need. So if you do need any of these little out of the box types of coverages, reach out, ask questions, and make sure that you are covered for what you need. So now let's take a look at certificates and contracts. So these are usually needed by additional insured. So you have a client, you add your client, the host or the property manager as an insured for your operations. Let's say that you have a regular, you have a regular client that you're cleaning for all the time. They're most likely going to ask you to add them as an additional insured. You're in their property a lot. You're going there, you're doing work, and they're going to want to be an additional insured. As I spoke about earlier, primary and non-contributory policy pays first. The client's policy stays in the background unless your limits are tapped, then it'll go into theirs next. Waive of subrogation, we won't try, or the insurance company won't try and recover any money from your client after a claim. And just depending on the contract you have, if you're signing a contract for each of your clients, it's sometimes required in there. So read the contracts if it is required. It's a real easy add for most insurance policies. Most carriers will offer it. And then another one that's a little bit interesting and it's not used as often is notice of cancellation to third parties. So sometimes you'll see it where you do have a standard contract, an additional insured is added to your policy, and as part of their contract, they're going to ask to be notified if your insurance policy ever has a lapse or is canceled. So there's an endorsement you can get on most general liability policies called notice of cancellation to third parties, where if there is a non-pay notice cancellation sent out, if you call and cancel your policy for any point, they have a 30-day window that's notified of cancellation to that third party that you put, so that they know that, hey, we can't have you come onto our site because you don't have your insurance anymore. Okay. So now let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty and look at your business. And let's talk about, how do you choose the right thing for you? Every business is different. Every business's needs are different. So there is no real one-size-fits-all insurance policy. Some people need a standard 1-2 policy. Larger businesses may ask for, 2 million, 5 million. You need to look at the types of jobs that you're doing and your business and, really think about the needs. Speak with an insurance agent. Call and talk to somebody if you don't know what you need, because they'll tell you what you need. They'll ask you questions about your business, your operations, and go through everything. Smart things to do for your business is do written scopes of work for your clients. Say, I'm doing X, Y, and Z on my job, so that they don't, expect something that you're not doing. If you have employees, or even for yourself, proper training on chemicals and what services they're good for. I know, Chris, you just had a webinar recently where you talked about the chemical use and how the wrong chemicals can easily cost thousands of dollars in damage. So I'm glad that y'all did that.
If you want the recording, if you haven't seen the recording and you want the recording, just respond. We'll send it to you. So if you haven't already seen that,
definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. So, incident reporting process. Carriers have different requirements if there is an incident. Make sure that you read your insurance contract and you know what the process looks like for reporting an incident or a claim. Again, the vehicles, very important. Won't go over that again. And then subcontractors. So sometimes if you're hiring a subcontractor, you get hired for a big job and you're bringing in independent contractors and you're subcontracting out work, you have proof of insurance for those independent contractors. Because a lot of times independent contractors are not covered by your GL policy, and you need them to provide you proof of their own to make sure that you are covered and they're covered in case something happens on the job. And then, how this can help you make more money being insured. You know, and you're meeting a lot more property hosts and property managers requirements, because not everybody's going to ask to see your insurance, but some of them are. I don't know what that percentage is on Turno, but it broadens your visibility. You can bid on accounts that require a $1 million liability insurance, or if you have higher limits, you can bid on those higher contracts as well. A lot of things that we've seen is those people that have insurance can actually charge higher rates for their work, and it's more professional business profile. And one of the biggest things for me personally is, it reduces stress, because I've seen it so many times, because I've been in this industry for so long. One bad claim and it can shut your businesses down, depending on if you have the right coverage or enough coverage to cover your needs. So it just helps reduce financial stress and overall stress as a business owner. And then it can help you grow. So when you have an insurance, they're usually 12-month policies. Just like with, your personal home or personal auto insurance, and let's say you get a new car, you're going to call your auto insurance and you're going to give them your new automobile information. You're giving them the new VIN number, the make, model, the value. You need to do those same types of things with your commercial insurance as well. You need to make sure you're updating your insurance policy when you do have those life events, when you are growing your business. Let's say you started out and you have $50,000 of revenue a year, but now you're really cranking it out and you're at $300,000 of revenue. Your insurance policy might not cover your needs as your businesses grow. So make sure you're updating your policy at a minimum once a year, but anytime you do have those big changes.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on this, if you didn't see the first couple of slides, like on the Turno marketplace, people who have like cleaners and contractors who have insurance badges connect more, connect faster, do more projects. Like it really does, impact both on these types of systems like Turno in the marketplace, as well as anything outside, like Kyle's explaining as well. There's a lot you can sort of translate into other bigger jobs that you may not be getting on Turno as well. So it's really good on the make more money. I like that.
It's true. I mean, I I have a personal housekeeper. She comes every other week, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, I sell insurance. All right, I don't really sell insurance, but I'm an underwriter. And she's like, do you have insurance for cleaners? And so I walked her through the process of going online, buying a policy. And so she's like, I'm actually charging 15% more for my jobs now that I have insurance, because people are more comfortable. I'm able to get more jobs. People are reaching out more often for those jobs. And so she's making more money because she invested in insurance. So what Insurance Canopy's policy is and what it doesn't cover. So we cover residential and small commercial cleaning businesses. That's what this policy was built and tailored to. We don't really tailor ours to those, big multi state companies that have 500 employees. It's not built for that. It's built for small businesses. It's tailored to janitorials and cleaners, maids, housekeeping, and then some of the additional ancillary things that you might do on the side. Up to 10 employees. So as your business grows, the Insurance Canopy policy can grow with you. And then we do cover medical facility cleaning, just because we saw a need in the marketplace, and we added that. You can get that with an endorsement. We do offer your standard 1 million, 2 million limits. We have a 2 million products completed ag limit and $1 million of personal advertising injury. So that's, you post something on Facebook and someone thinks you're slandering them, that's where that would kick in. And, because we are tailored to small businesses, we're able to keep the premium down because we know that, every dollar counts in a small business. And so we're able to do it for, $39 a month, which is fairly reasonably priced in the marketplace. And then also we do have a retail arm as well. So as your business grows, let's say that you're doing this and your business keeps growing, you're doing really, really great, and our online policy isn't a fit for you. We have licensed insurance agents that can make sure that you get the policy that is right for you as well. So, like I said earlier, insurance is not a one-size-fits-all box for everybody. And make sure that you're looking at your policy frequently, and as your business grows, speak with an insurance agent, counsel, and get that information that you need to make sure that you are properly insured. Okay, so like I said, not everything is a one size fits all. So what is not covered? So these are things to keep in mind when you're shopping for a policy. So we don't cover medical facility cleaning unless you choose it to add by endorsement, biohazard remediation, water extraction, mold remediation, vent duct hood cleaning. So that's when you're cleaning, if you like people that clean restaurants in the kitchen, those vent ducts, we don't want you to do any of that work. Pressure washing, not from ground level. A lot of your standard GL policies will exclude pressure washing, but we do include it from ground level. The reason we say ground level is because of the state of New York. It's such a fun state. They have some crazy laws that, let's say you are, standing on a curb doing work and you step backwards and you fall off a curb that's 6 inches. That's considered in the state of New York a fall from height. And it can make the severity of claims 100 times worse. so we just add that caveat in there. Pressure washing is fine from ground level, but not from ground level. And we don't do anything sandblasting. Sometimes, depending on where you are, you'll have big outside decks and stuff. And every once in a while, someone will ask you to sandblast a deck and repaint it. We don't cover any of that. Any handling of infectious wastes, or that first construction or first post-construction cleanup. Like I said earlier, we had a claim that was $140,000. You have to get an endorsement for it if you want it covered. So if you want insurance real easy, you can scan the QR code right here, or just go to insurancecanopy.com, search for cleaning business insurance. There's also a phone number there if you do want to call and speak with one of our customer service representatives if you have additional questions. Everybody is a non-commissioned licensed insurance agent, so they're not going to try and sell you anything to make a commission. They're just going to give you the answers to the questions you have, and if they don't know the answers, they're going to find out and get you informed properly. So please do reach out if you have any questions. I know not everybody was able to make this webinar live, so if you are watching it recorded and you do have questions, follow up. We're happy to answer them and respond to you. Awesome.
Yeah, last but not least, we have a few minutes, so we'll wait if there are any questions. Again, there's the QR code, the information for Insurance Canopy if you want to get insured quickly. And again, just they'll give you an instant claim. They'll give you an instant certificate of insurance that you can just pop right into Turno and be up and running with your insurance badge within a few days. So really cool stuff. But yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to type them in. I don't have any outstanding right now, but we'll wait, a minute or two just to see if there's anything that comes in before we sign off.
Yeah. And even if you decide not to get insured with Insurance Canopy, get insured somewhere. Yes. Protect your business. That's the most important thing. I don't care if you come to Insurance Canopy or whoever, protect your business.
Yes.
So
yes. Agreed. It's, we do see these things, right? Obviously, because we run a marketplace and there's connections and we have conversations with hosts and we have conversations with cleaners and contractors all the time where we have to go and do some back and forth on this stuff. And, having this insurance just makes the connection all that much easier, because most of the vast majority of situations that happen are completely innocent, right? But somebody is at some sort of loss. And so, having insurance come in and cover that and reduce the stress is incredibly important. We've seen it work really, really well with some disputes in the past. So
Yeah, and it's you never expect to have a loss or a claim or anything like that. It's just there to protect you. Like we had one. I guess I can talk about some different claim scenarios. So, workers' compensation claim. They're just vacuuming, standard vacuuming, and they felt a twinge in their back seized up, and they're unable to work for 3 months while their back heals. So, I mean, it might not be as something that you think about, but something as simple as you have a back spasm and your back tightens up while vacuuming is can be 3 months worth of pay, rehabilitation, doctor's visits, all that could come out of pockets, or you could get a simple workers' comp policy and be covered.
Kyle, do you have to have a business license, like an LLC or something, to get insurance?
No, so we cover sole proprietors. We do cover LLCs, corporations. So when you're going through the insurance application, it will ask you, like, if you have an EIN, you can put it in there. You don't have to. It's not required to get insurance. Workers' compensation insurance is a little different because usually you have to have a business in order to get workers' compensation insurance. So they will require you an EIN for workers' compensation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Does this insurance construction, like final cleans, like I guess like again, like final construction cleans? I guess it's your answer to that is like yes, but you have to have an endorsement.
Yeah, that's you need to, if you're doing post-construction cleanup, like the very first one, you need to read your insurance policy or call and speak to an insurance agent, because most likely it's not going to be covered by the policy unless it's endorsed. It's something that is pretty industry standard that it's excluded on a policy. Is that
Yeah, so
initial?
yeah, I think we answered that question for the person who asked it. So
Okay.
for final construction cleans, like, yes, you can get that coverage, but you should talk to an insurance agent to make sure that it's on your policy, just because it is a little bit different than a typical like short-term rental clean or something like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's the main advice.
100%.
I'm learning so much about insurance today.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised you're still awake, because it can be real boring sometimes.
No, I think this is fantastic, right? And these boring, if your business is boring, that's probably a good thing. It probably means that you're being rather successful. So
that is very true. That's very true.
yeah, I'm gonna take. It looks like somebody had a. Oh, I see. Look, I'm gonna go to the choosing limits. Somebody wanted to see this sort of checklist at the bottom, like the smart business moves, I think, is what they were looking for. So I'll send that back there so that person can take a look. I don't know if there's any other questions. I think we've answered all of them live, but feel free. I mean, this is really engaging conversation. I love when people are asking these types of questions.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think what other types of things that you might need to think about to protect your business. So, I mean, we've looked at commercial auto, we've looked at your general liability, what that does. We've looked at inland marine insurance, cyber liability insurance, what bonds do.
Yeah. I have one more. I know we talked about this, but I think it is an interesting one. I think a lot of folks do bring in their own 1099 cleaners from time to time. Can you kind of give a little bit more again on that one, which is just like how to, I know it's a bit of like a interesting area, but what is your suggestion on those types?
So if you have 1099 workers that are working for your business, the easiest and best thing you can do is call your state Department of Insurance and ask them how they handle it. Because, like I said, every state is different. I know where I live here in Florida, it's required to have workers' compensation insurance for them, but not all states require it. So that's where I recommend call your local agent, call your local Department of Insurance. They always have someone that's able to answer those types of questions, and they'll counsel and guide you on what you need to do.
It's a great call out. Yeah, I think that's the point. Is it does vary sort of state to state, and so it is important to make sure that you're covering yourself in those instances if you need to.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, even coverage varies state to state, carrier to carrier. Like, one carrier can have 5 different types of policies they can sell you. Another one can have another 5 different types. So it varies so much that, that's why we give you the ability to call and ask questions, because we want to make sure that you feel empowered to gain that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it for all the questions. I think we're right at about time. Thank you so much, Kyle. This has been incredibly informative. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate folks on this. Thank you if you're watching the recording. Remember, if you are still live here, we will be sending that recording out. So you can go back and pause any of these slides and see exactly what you need. But thank you again if you are watching the recording and taking the time. I think that this topic is incredibly important for your business, for your success, and also just to make sure for your peace of mind. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your week, and look forward to the next series coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, y'all.